the beginning of the end. So let's talk about Donkey Kong. My hearing's not until 10. Picture this, Nintendo floundering. How? Prior to the 1980s, Nintendo would experiment with all kinds of business ventures, though toys and games were always a constant. That is a fact. But once video games and arcades became the latest fad, Nintendo knew they had to take a crack at it with EVR Raid, Block Fever, Computer Othello. This isn't working out. Okay, the game Radar Scope was a monumental flop in North America. Just take those machines and make a new game out of them, and that is how we got to this point. The original Donkey Kong from the arcades, a smash hit born out in 1981, was one of the first platformers as we know them today, which is just one of the many reasons behind its importance. This was the game that solidified Nintendo as a titan in gaming, the game that gave Shigeru Miyamoto his start in game design and direction, the game that introduced the most iconic video game character, debatably fictional character, of all time. Jumpman. You ever just accept this as an icon of society? Mario's first appearance, originally named Jumpman, you got a 2-for-1 here with icons, though as a kid I found it strange how you didn't play as the titular character. I mean, it's straight up called Donkey Kong, Nintendo. Read the room.
Wanna play as an ape, wanna play as an ape.
All DK does is plant himself at the top of the screen and throw barrels at you, like any form of plagiarism would. And all these characters are based on the archetypes of the cast of Popeye, in addition to taking heavy inspiration from King Kong. But we're not here to argue whether Donkey Kong was plagiarism or not. We're here to agree. Regardless, Donkey Kong was an enormous success, and without it, we would not have Nintendo in the form we do today. Donkey Kong. Of course, now with the successful property, Nintendo learned that it's never too early to start giving up. Donkey Kong Jr. He f***ed. Here you play as Donkey Kong's son, who is tasked with saving Donkey Kong from Mario. It follows the same idea of get to the top, but I do think this one has a lot more strategy involved in terms of how to get there the quickest while racking up a high score. While Jr. did well, it didn't do as well as the original Donkey Kong. So take this, make a multi-billion-dollar franchise out of it, and take this, and just take it. While Mario spun off into his own franchise, the Donkey Kong series introduced Stanley the Bugman, a warning sign if I've ever seen one. Donkey Kong 3 is a vertical shooter where Stanley shoots bug spray into Donkey Kong ass, Donkey Kong's Donkey Kong ass, Donkey Kong ass. Get Donkey Kong to the top of the screen while shooting all the bees. Suffice to say, most players were not interested in bee-based software. Couple that with this releasing in 1983 right alongside the video game crash and just straight up not being anything like the previous Donkey Kong games, and Donkey Kong 3 killed the franchise, just like any Donkey Kong 3 would. Any series that's tried it, it's never worked out. Afterwards, the DK series is relegated to re-releases and Donkey Kong Jr. Math, the sign of any healthy franchise. But then, a decade after Donkey Kong 3, Nintendo revived and rebooted the series with Donkey Kong Country, developed by the studio Rare. It didn't evolve the arcade gameplay, rather it took the character of Donkey Kong, made him the protagonist, and built new worlds, characters, and a standardized style of gameplay to make this more of an actual series rather than flavor of the month, spray this monkey's ass with bug spray.
I'll take chocolate.
Your villains were the Kremlings. You had a whole Kong family, including Donkey Kong's new sidekick, Diddy Kong. You had some of the most impressive graphics on a console up to that point. Donkey Kong Country was a massive success, and every massive success leads to a sexual revolution. Donkey Kong Country 2, 3, Game Boy side games, Donkey Kong Land 1, 2, and 3, Donkey Kong 64, bringing the series into 3D for the first time ever, all developed by Rare. Donkey Kong was finally starting to be treated like the Mario series with all this support. But even when that series was just a spin-off of Donkey Kong, it received loads of spin-offs itself in the form of Dr. Mario, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, Mario Kart. So with all of these new games taking place in a world primed for expansion, it was fair to expect Donkey Kong to receive some spin-offs of his own, and in 1997, damn it, Diddy Kong Racing, not Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong doesn't appear at all in this game. In fact, fundamentally, no Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong Country elements appear outside of Diddy Kong himself. Like, you made this whole ass new world in the country games, and then the racing game's spin-off features crunch. These are just a bunch of damn Build-A-Bears. But hey, Diddy Kong Racing was an excellent kart racer, one that, to some, surpassed Mario Kart 64.
You can tell it did by all the sequels it got.
And it was still developed by Rare. They made all the Donkey Kong related stuff back then, and going into the GameCube generation, they were poised to make more.
Oh, come on!
That threw a wrench into plans, one of the most infamous studio acquisitions of all time. Microsoft buying Rare, making it impossible for them to continue being the head developer of Donkey Kong, considering how they were owned by Nintendo's rival. Many look at this as one of Nintendo's biggest blunders. I mean, outside of Donkey Kong, Rare developed GoldenEye, Banjo-Kazooie? You fool! But the thing is, I feel like if Nintendo saw legitimate value in their continued relationship with Rare, they would have purchased them, no doubt. Even though Nintendo owned 49% of the company at the time, Rare went to them as game development was becoming too expensive for them not to be a flat-out subsidiary. And Nintendo said no. They bought ND Cube 10 years later. They made Tube Slider. And even though they supposedly made some bids to buy Rare once Microsoft and Activision were throwing offers around, just the fact that they allowed an opening for them to be purchased by a competitor in the first place says to me they didn't value their work as much as we think they did. I mean, Rare made like half the Nintendo 64 library, and you bought... Welcome back to Nintendo Makes Good Choices. Oh, man. Rare did have some Donkey Kong projects in the works at the time, though. All spin-offs, actually. There was Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers, a puzzle game for Game Boy Advance, and Diddy Kong Pilot, a Game Boy Advance successor to Diddy Kong Racing. While Microsoft forbade Rare from making GameCube games, they could still produce Game Boy Advance titles simply because Microsoft wasn't in the handheld market. So bring on It's Mr. Pants.
And 9 months later, you were born.
These were reworked versions of those Donkey Kong projects. Coconut Crackers became Pants, and Diddy Kong Pilot became Banjo Pilot. But there was a big one that never saw the light of day. Donkey Kong Racing for GameCube. This seemed to be the logical evolution of Diddy Kong Racing, incorporating far more Donkey Kong Country elements, riding animal buddies from those games, taking place in these jungle settings. But of course, this was canceled after Rare's acquisition. They attempted to rework it into a few different projects without the DK license for Xbox and Xbox 360. That never worked. Guys, it's not Donkey Kong Racing. It's Earl! While all these projects were retooled or canceled, Nintendo and Rare would collaborate again via the Donkey Kong Country re-releases for GBA. Yeah, sure, we can still be friends. You'll just hear me and my new boyfriend f*** all the time. Rare developed these ports, so there was some wiggle room for them to work on Nintendo games. Maybe they could make some brand new portable DK titles.
Tell me when.
The 2000s! Listen, I'm just throwing it out there. Bad era for Donkey Kong. Economic recession. Without its key developer of the past decade, I think Nintendo didn't really know what to do with this thing. Be honest, if you had the keys to this kingdom, you wouldn't either. So f*** it, let's get weird. All according to plan. The most well-known Donkey Kong project from the 2000s has to be the Donkey Konga series, rhythm games for the GameCube developed by Namco, specifically because of their work on the Taiko Drum Master games. I mean, comparing the two, they're very similar, but where Donkey Konga differs is its use of well, that, and the DK Bongos accessory. Sure, you can play Donkey Konga with a regular controller.
You can also brush your teeth with mice.
But it was designed around the DK Bongos. Smack and clap along to the music. It was a gimmicky yet very novel spin-off idea for DK. The barrel-like bongos were a trademark of the series ever since that first arcade game. The title itself featured characters from the Donkey Kong Country series. Diddy Kong Racing may have been the better Donkey Kong spin-off, but Donkey Konga was the better Donkey Kong spin-off. And a lot of that was due to those damn bongos. I mean, talk about unique accessories. Go on, talk about them. So of course, you couldn't just stop at one use for these things. I mean, they're bongos. There's a million things you can do with them, all of which are Donkey Konga based. Donkey Konga 2 is basically just more of the same, now with an updated song list, and the same can be said for Donkey Konga 3, though that one never left Japan. They wanted to make the most out of these bongos, and after 3 rhythm games, many would stop right there, but Nintendo refused. This was Donkey Kong Now, a bongo's bitch, because Nintendo's prime development team, EAD, pumped out Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, a brand new Donkey Kong platformer for GameCube designed around using the DK bongos.
To prove the skeptics wrong.
I mean, Jungle Beat is a very well-designed and fun game, and a new Donkey Kong platformer developed in-house at Nintendo ain't something to complain about if you weren't in the house next to them. Donkey Kong's presence on the handhelds was just as abnormal, though. Outside of the country games, we got DK King of Swing on the GBA in 2005, developed by Payon. Somebody had to do it. Now, who is Payon? Well, the developer of DK King of Swing, of course. Thanks, Dad. They seem to be mostly a support studio, one you call if you need help getting things done. But this happens to be one of their few sole development credits. This is a Payon-only joint, and it's something only they can do. Disappoint me. The King of Swing isn't bad, it just feels painfully generic. Like, this could have been for any franchise, but with an added Donkey Kong coat of paint. Ew. It's just a puzzle platformer, nothing too offensive, but my god, when I look at this, I want to feel! You grab onto these walls and continually move clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on what hand you grab them with. It's a fine idea, it's just the execution is a bit bland. At that time, King of Swing was the closest we really got to a traditional DK game outside of Jungle Beat, and how close was that really? Oh, Jungle Beat only retained Donkey Kong bananas and barrels from DKC. Outside of that, That's what I'm saying. Payon proved themselves worthy of crafting new yet simple Donkey Kong-based experiences for handheld, so Nintendo commissioned them again for a King of Swing sequel on Nintendo DS, DK Jungle Climber. God damn, I mean, DK King of Swing was simplistic looking, but at the very least it had some sort of funky style to it. This is just pathetic. Like, don't do that! So Payon was head of the DK series, pumping out tolerable experiences. Rare came back one last time to develop a Nintendo DS remake of Diddy Kong Racing with more Donkey Kong references in tow, both in 2007. So Nintendo was pumping out DK spin-offs like mad this year. Why not another? Hey, so we have one series of DK spin-offs made by Payon, another focused on racing, even if Donkey Kong Racing never saw the light of day, and another that'll get you evicted. So for the third Donkey Kong spin-off in 2007, let us combine all three to get— oh, what the f